Good evening. I'd like to call the annual reorganizational meeting to order. The time on the clock is 7 p.m. and it is March 25th. Melissa, would you please take the roll call?
Melissa Denton. Here. Andy Cabarrus.
Here.
Carl Hubner.
Here.
Denise Meyer. Here. Richard Poore.
Here.
Pinkerton Student Board Member Fallon Roy. And also seated at the board table is Superintendent Bob Thompson and CFO Jeff Dowd.
And at this time, if everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Denise, would you mind leading us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we look for nominations for school board chair, I would just like to take this opportunity to welcome Denise Meyer to the board. Congratulations on your election win on March 11th. And Denise is very familiar to the school district, has served on various committees, including the HCS Building Committee, as well as our most recent middle school principal search. And we saw how well that's going. So welcome, Denise. We're glad to have you. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to look for nominations for school board chair. Nominations do not require a second. So I have any nominations for school board chair?
I'd like to nominate Andy Cabarrus for school board chair.
All right, Dr. Hubner has nominated Andy Cabarrus for school board chair. I'm going to make a second request. Are there any other nominations for school board chair? One more time. Any more nominations for school board chair? Okay, excellent. So at this time, there's one nomination, and that is of Andy Cabarrus. So we will now vote. So by a show of hands, all those in favor of Andy serving as a school board chair, please raise your hand. You can vote for yourself.
I can vote for myself. Okay.
Yeah. All right. All right. That is 5 in the affirmative. So congratulations. And at this time, I'm going to hand the chair spot over to Andy.
Great. Thanks, Bob. I'll just say I'm honored to chair the board for another year and look forward to serving my community. Now I'll be looking for nominations for vice chair. So I'll be looking for any nominations from the board.
I nominate Carl Hubner.
Okay. Any other nominations? One last chance for nominations. Okay. With the nominations being closed, I will call for a vote for Carl Hubner for vice chair. All those in favor? All right. At this point, I'll be looking for a motion for the recommendation to allow the superintendent or designee to seek legal counsel when necessary and with the law firm most appropriate.
So moved.
I will also be looking for a motion for recommendation for Melissa Post to be the school board clerk.
So moved.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. All approved. All in favor of, sorry.
All approved for legal counsel.
Yes, all approved for legal counsel. Thank you. Now we'll be looking for a motion for school board clerk for the recommendation of Melissa Post.
So moved.
All approved. And now looking at representatives and delegates, we need a representative for the New Hampshire School Board Association delegate position. This is a volunteer position.
I'll do it again.
Great. Thank you, Carl.
Do we need to vote on that?
It
No,
does
okay.
not say that we need a motion for that. Okay. Moving on to the bonding of the school district officer. So I'll look for a recommendation to bond the treasurer as required by statute and Department of Revenue Administration regulations.
So moved.
All approved? Next, the designation of bank depository. I'll be looking for a recommendation to appoint TD Bank as the district bank.
So moved.
All approved. Next, looking at policies that we need to go through annually. The first one is the investment policy DFA. It's reviewed annually per RSA and the auditor. And Mr. Dowd, did you want to speak to any of these before we
Sure.
review
On
them?
policy DFA, you'll note that the priority of the policy is safety of principal, liquidity, and that the yield of any investments that the district maintains should have a market rate of return. Prudence and investments free from conflict are a priority in this policy. That said, we do not typically request more funding from the towns than we're typically spending. So what we have is typically working capital to service our payments and debts. And so typically we don't invest. The funds that we would invest would be capital reserve funds, and those are held by the trustees of the trust funds for the town of Hampstead. Any questions?
No. All right. Should we go one policy at a time and approve each one individually, or?
Sure.
So I'm not sure that you need to approve the policies, you're just reviewing them.
Just reviewing them? Okay.
Okay.
So I'll just note in the minutes that the board reviewed these policies, which is an annual task.
Great. And Mr. Dowd, anything to share on policy EI?
So policy EI is risk management, and it's a policy that the board reviews at its organizational meeting every year. You can read through the policy, and it gives a little bit of insight as to how we mitigate risk and manage risks of the district. We use Primex for nearly all of our risk management. I say risk management, Primex is not insurance, it is a risk management pool. As a district, we are entitled to a higher level of protection being part of a risk management pool than we would actually having commercial insurance. So that's why we have it.
Great. Thank you.
And Primex is the one that's primarily used by most school districts in the state.
And municipalities, yeah.
Okay.
And lastly would be the review of controls over expenditure of funds procedure.
So we have a breakdown of how our accounts payables function, payroll functions work. We have some common procedures to both accounts payable and payroll. What you see in front of you is a narrative that is how we operate within the business office, and these are controls, these illustrate controls that we have in place surrounding those disbursement activities and aspects.
Okay. Board members, any questions on any of these three policies and procedures? Okay. Moving on, the scheduling of regular meetings. So I'll be looking for recommendations to hold our school board meetings on the second and fourth Tuesdays of each month. Before we look at this recommendation, I just wanted to kind of put it out to the board. Do people feel like the 7 o'clock time for our meetings works for them? Do we feel strongly about changing the time? Personally, from a parent perspective, it gives me time to end my work at 5 p.m., make dinner for the kids, and arrive here with enough time. That's just my personal feelings on it, but I didn't know if any of the other board members felt any other way.
I mean, it's worked in the past. I don't see any reason to change it.
Okay. So at this point, I'll be looking for a recommendation to hold our board meetings on the second and fourth Tuesdays of each month at 7 p.m. at the Hampstead Middle School as presented in the 2025-2026 proposed meeting schedule.
So moved.
Second. All approved.
Could I just get some clarification on who made the second on that motion? Was Ms. Denton? Okay,
Give it to
thank
Ms.
you. I
Denton.
missed that.
Okay. Moving on to policy BCA. This requires that the board sign the ethics statements on an annual basis. So you should find that policy BCA and BCAX in your packets. If I could borrow a pen from someone, that would be amazing. Thank you.
Do you need a pen? Oh, I got two.
Okay. Board members, any other questions or comments? At this point, I will call for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All approved. Okay. Now we will move into our regular meeting. I will call this meeting to order. Melissa, will you please take roll call?
Yes. Melissa Denton,
Here.
Andy Cabarrus,
Here.
Carl Hubner,
Here.
Denise Meyer, Richard Poor.
Here.
Thank you. And also seated at the board table is Superintendent Bob Thompson, CFO Jeff Dowd.
Board members, in your packets, you have some minutes from our February 11th regular meeting. So if you could please review those, that would be great.
I'll make a motion to approve our regular meeting minutes from the February 11th, 2025 meeting.
Second.
All approved.
Do we have any abstentions? Thank you, Ms. Meyer.
Okay. Moving on to public comment. Is there anyone there for public comment?
Yes, we have one participant who signed up tonight.
Great, thank you. If you could please state your full name and your address.
Sure. Is this on? Yes, it is. Okay, I am Jorge Mesa Tejada, 54 Tewksbury Road, Hampstead. I've been in Hampstead since 1966. I have 8 years of school board experience during the year-round school which I proposed, and I designed every square inch of this building during my tenure in 70 and 74 and 90 and 94. That's my background. So I'm talking from experience, but also as a taxpayer. And what I want to talk to you about is what just happened. But before I go anywhere, Denise, welcome to the board. And if your contribution is as good as in the other meeting that I met you at, you're welcome. It will be great. Okay. First of all, I have to remind you that schools are service corporations. they consume money, but they do not produce, they only produce intangibles. So as such, this budget surprise was, defeat was not surprise, because we looked at money, which is the only way we can measure you, because we have no control over the educational results. So we taxpayers look at money. I was not, because of the amount of this year, which in fact it was negative compared to last year in terms of increase, is the cumulative effect since we became a separate district, okay? And that, thanks to your chart in slide 24, the budgets prior to becoming our own district averaged 2.64%. That's when we were part of Timberlane. Since then, they averaged 5.56. It is understandable that at the beginning, the first one was 5.33 in 2020, 2021. Then it became 10.46%. Then the next one was a negative 3.58, but then it jumped to 11.12 in 2023 and 2024, and 12.05 in 2024, 2025. So the average there is 5.56%. So the problem here is that the only difference here is that we had to populate an SAU. It's a single district SAU. And the way I see it, members of the board, is that you're trying to populate an SAU for a huge district. We're only a K through 8. And therefore, our expenses are huge. We went from a budget of 1196 in 533 to 1130 this year. And that is untenable. And that's why you were not surprised to hear that we defeated the budget. That we have to start controlling costs, okay? But so what can you do? Do not replace retiring personnel. Hold it at the way it is right now. Stop adding personnel. For instance, the special education coordinator that you brought into the grant. No, grant people should not become personnel. Say that you're going to add it. Don't bring it into as a grant and say 2 months later, oh, we want to make them as our own people. That was $121,000 addition to the budget. Also, the district is top heavy. Too many administrators. You have to, and I don't even know what the support personnel is. For instance, why do we still have an HMS assistant principal when ED 30427 stipulates that it's only required when we have 500 or more students? We haven't had that since 2007. So reassign that as administrator to another job as opposed to hiring someone. And stop converting grants into line items in the next budget. Several items that I could give you, but I won't bother you. Point is, we're looking at money because we have no control over results. And that's what we taxpayers look at. And because of the circumstances, that is why your budget failed. I don't think that it was a decision based on whether we were satisfied with the school or not. No, it was that you guys were growing too fast. So we have to put a stop to that, and that's why you got it. So we hope that you start looking at the budget more closely, start looking at where you can save money. If people retire, do not replace them. Do a cost analysis and see whether that's required. If you have look at your A's. You have a lot of A's. I'll be glad to spend time showing you where it is, but you are personnel heavy, and understandably so. 78% of it is payroll, and that's where the money goes, and we pay for it, unfortunately. And we have no control over that, but you do, and that's what will hold you accountable. So I wish you a good year. You can do it. I know that you can do it. We have a good basis to rebuild the district, and let's hope this year would be a surprise to all of us, and we'll be glad to come back and support you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to school highlights. The HCS staff and the student presentation with Dr. Cheney.
Hello, good evening. I'm just going to give you a couple of updates before we get to my my friends over here who are going to be the real stars of the evening, but a couple of things that I wanted to make sure I had an opportunity to mention to you this evening. Our enrollment continues to grow. We're currently at 477 students as we move into the last third of the school year. One thing that's really exciting is that we had several staff members nominated as Teacher of the Year candidates for the state of New Hampshire. And so I'm really proud of all of the work they do, so I'd love to be able to share with you who those folks were. We had Mrs. Garside from our first grade team, Mrs. Gallant from our first grade team, both Mrs. Pekalski and Mrs. Smith from our kindergarten team, Mrs. Mahoney from our preschool team, Mr. Hathaway from third grade, Mrs. Stark from Unified Arts, and we had Mrs. Wisecarver, who has decided to move forward with that nomination and will be pursuing the process of running for Teacher of the Year for the state of New Hampshire. So we're very proud of all of our teachers, but especially those folks that were nominated this year. A couple other things to put on your radar are we just hosted our kindergarten parent night right before February break. We had about 50 families attend who are eager to have their students join the Hampstead Central School. We're looking like we have about 72 families right now that are attempting to enroll in kindergarten, and it's still pretty early days, so we're watching those numbers pretty closely as we move through the spring. I'd love to highlight some of the work of our student council. This year, our student council is particularly service-minded. They started out their tenure with a service project collecting coats for families. This year, they have moved into a February Kindness Challenge, where they challenged staff and students to decorate their classroom and office doors in the theme of friendship. They're also working on a book swap this month where students can bring in, staff can bring in old favorites that they are done reading and swap them out for somebody else's favorite. At the end of the month, all of those books will be donated to the PTSA's Bingo for Books, anything that's left over, which is an event that is happening later this week. We're excited about continued collaboration between HCS and HMS. Mrs. Griffin's Flex Group has visited both grade 2 and preschool this month. Mrs. Laz's class came up the access road to do a scavenger hunt with Mrs. Griffin's 7th graders. They identified many features in the woods. They looked for animal tracks, they looked for rocks, they looked for pine cones, all of the things you can see in a New Hampshire winter. In preschool, Mrs. Griffin's students came down and they worked with our preschoolers on their zoo unit, learning about different zoo animals that students may see. We're excited about School Breakfast Week that was celebrated the first week in March. Mrs. Barbic really took the lead on this and designed a dynamic week where we were bringing awareness to the importance of breakfast. We hosted a breakfast for staff, but really exciting, we hosted our first ever Breakfast Buddies event. We had about 80 people attend to enjoy a school breakfast and to learn more about our programs. We're excited about a preschool study team that has just formed at the Central School. We have an opportunity right now to celebrate the strengths of our existing program while also looking at ways that we can continue to improve to make sure that our preschool best meets the needs of Hampstead's youngest learners. Over the next couple of days, some members of our team will be going to visit area preschools, and then we'll come back and we will talk about what we've seen, what works, and what we might be able to incorporate. Another important facet, though, of this study team is a survey that has been sent out in my newsletters. We're going to post it to our social media account, so any community member is welcome to fill out that survey, and we welcome feedback, even if you don't have children in preschool or your students are already through, but any community member in Hampstead, because this really is Hampstead's preschool. So that's probably enough from me, but I have Mrs. McLaughlin here with some of our students to tell you all about a really exciting service project that she brought to Hampstead Central School that impacted all of our students. So come on up, Mrs. McLaughlin.
Hi, sorry, just organizing some students. So first, I wanted to thank you all for having us here tonight. Blankets of Hope is a project that means the world to me. It was a project that I took on in a previous district, and as soon as we got off the wait list this year, I ran right to Dr. Cheney's office and asked if this is something that we might be able to incorporate at Hampstead Central School. So in the month of February, we were doing a kindness week, so the timing couldn't have aligned more perfectly. So Blankets of Hope, they are a nonprofit organization based out of New York City in Brooklyn, and they are two brothers named Mike and Nick Fiorito who worked in the corporate world. They would walk the streets of New York City every day and just see the population, the homeless population in New York continue to grow each day. And they felt like they couldn't help. So what they did was they left their corporate jobs and formed Blankets of Hope. They found investors, and it really became a mission of kindness. So their mission is to inspire a global movement of kindness, one blanket at a time. So over 160,000 students across the United States have practiced empathy and kindness with Blankets of Hope, and our Hampstead Central School students will have added to the already 320,000 people who have been supported with this project. So what we did is our Central School students participated in a service learning project, and they discovered more about empathy, kindness, and reinforced what they already knew. So Blankets of Hope is, like I said, the foundation. What they do is they have these beautiful blankets, nice warm blankets, and they partner with businesses and schools around the country, and it's almost entirely student-led throughout the empathy workshop and the kindness workshop, where students brainstorm messages of kindness and inspiration, and we write these letters and we attach them to blankets. So the first part is the empathy workshop, which we did as a whole school assembly, where students came together to learn about what Blankets of Hope is. We watched a video, a Sesame Street video, about a little girl who no longer had her bedroom, and the color purple made her feel sad. And the reason the color purple made her feel sad is because that was her favorite color, and it was the color of her bedroom. And it was in a very kid-friendly way for them to understand homelessness in, I don't want to say a watered-down version, but in a kid-friendly way that they could understand. And that empathy piece, you could see a lot of them feeling sad when the little girl was sad, and then when the little girl became happier towards the end, you could kind of see their spirits lift a little bit. So it was, our SEL team did a great job. Mrs. Chrissa and Mrs. Barbeck did a really nice job finding that video to align really well with our project. So the second component of Blankets of Hope is a kindness workshop. So students in grades K to 4 did a student-led brainstorm of messages and kindness and inspiration during technology class with me. So again, I'm sorry, probably should have introduced myself, but I am Tara McLaughlin. I'm the technology integration teacher at Central School. So it just kind of worked out that I was able to do this in my class, since I do work with all students at Central School. So they used the brainstorm that they came up with to write letters to individuals who need it the most. The letters will be attached to blankets that will be donated to people in need, and the messages of kindness will help the recipients remember that they are important and thought of. So one of the big things we talked about in our kindness workshop was that many people going through homelessness felt forgotten. And students really resonated with that they didn't want anybody to feel forgotten. And that community piece that we embody at Hampstead Central School was very apparent in their messages and the brainstorms. So at Hampstead Central, we will donate 420 blankets and messages of kindness to the following foundations. Boxes of Love for the Homeless. They are a major New Hampshire foundation that they go to multiple locations in New Hampshire and more prevalent homeless communities, and they hold events where people who may be going through tough times can come and collect food, and our blankets are distributed, and they do get to read our letters there. Isaiah 58 has already picked up their blankets and will be distributing those, and this week St. Anne's Parish will also be receiving them. So I was very adamant on wanting a good chunk of our blankets to remain in the Hampstead community, just knowing our students played such a big role in that. So with the Blankets of Hope, we were featured on WMUR, so Mrs. Wise-Carver's class did a phenomenal job. WMUR came in and they got to kind of witness the kindness workshop in action. They got to see our students brainstorming, writing the letters, thinking, like that thinking process. And that was a really great experience for our students, and I feel like for the community to see what has been going on behind the scenes with this project. And Eagle Tribune came in to do an article on Mrs. Cipriano's third grade class. So again, they got to really see that like kindness and empathy workshop in action and what really goes into it. So it is, the kindness workshop essentially is 100% student-led. and they do come up with the messages all on their own. So I will get into the kindness workshop messages in a minute, but I wanted to invite some of our students to come up and just share a little bit about what they took away from Blankets of Hope, because they're the real, as Dr. Cheney said, they're the real stars of the show. I facilitated the project, but they're the ones that really took the reins and made it their own. So I would like to invite up Avery to start.
Hi, my name is Avery Cabarrus in the 4th grade in Miss Wisecover's class. Blankets of Hope was a project that I was able to make a connection to. On a trip with my family, I have seen many people who were going through homelessness, and I wanted my letter to make people happy because I knew I was helping to change the world and bringing happiness to those who need it most. I learned that there's always hope to be found. Thank you.
I'm Parker Flynn in 4th grade, and I'm in Miss Wisecarver's class. When I was writing my letter, I really thought deeply about how we could help people who need it. I thought how we could bring sunshine into the dark moments. I felt happy knowing that my letter was going to someone experiencing something hard and needed hope in the world. Blankets of Hope inspired me to want to continue helping people in the future.
Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm in 2nd grade, and my teacher's name Mrs. Gordon. I love being part of Blankets of Hope because I love helping people. I hope the people who receive our letters and blankets are happy. I hope we do this project again next year to help even more people.
My name is Amelia Port, and I'm in 2nd grade in Miss Lazaro's class. Blankets of Hope was a great project because it helps people who need it. This project helped me be thankful for what I have and want to help people be cozy, hope, and warm. And I hope and the letters help the people who read them feel happy and warm and thought of.
Hello, my name is Jameson Karachi, and I'm in 4th grade in Mrs. Alessio's class. And Blankets of Hope was a project that I was excited about because I knew I was helping someone in need. I love helping people. It makes me feel good. The kindness workshop brainstorm was easy for me because I knew what I wanted to say to bring a smile to people's faces. I was very proud to be a part of the Blankets of Hope project.
Hi, my name is Savannah Vera in Mrs. Wisecarver's class in grade 4. Blankets of Hope meant a lot for me because it isn't about how big the message is, it's about how powerful it can be. Knowing our 420 letters and blankets from Hempstead Central School students are going to people that need it makes me feel proud of being a part of this project. I realize that with this project that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness have the biggest impacts.
Thank you, guys. Stay up here, okay? So we worked together. These students came up with these messages on their own. This was a project, like I said, it was entirely student-led through the kindness workshop. So the kindness messages that you have heard them say today are exactly what came about in their kindness workshop. So what I did is I included a few slides from the classes that our students who are here today included. So this is an example of Mrs. Lazaro's class brainstorm. So there are messages such as, we're thinking of you, you're the best in the entire world, push through hard times, you can do anything, you're a good person, I hope this blanket helps you stay warm, you are unbelievable, you are strong, you are never forgotten. So every bullet point on there was not teacher presented, it was not in any way, shape, or form teacher-led, it was entirely student-led, and these are from second graders. This is from Mrs. Alessio's fourth grade class. The world is full of kind people like you. Good things are coming. Stay confident. You never know what your future holds. Keep believing in yourself. We may not know what you're going through, and that was a pretty common message amongst a lot of classes. Be your best self. You're good at what you set your mind to. And my favorite was believe in yourself even when it gets rough. And Mrs. Wisecarver's class, another fourth grade class, you matter, keep going, you're important, you're part of our community, there's always light at the end of the tunnel, you can get to the end of the rainbow, be your own superhero, you can pull through, and again, as you see again, we may not know what you're going through. And lastly for today, we have Mrs. Gordon's, another second grade class. I hope you know that we care about you, you're doing great. You're a great person, don't give up on yourself. You can fight through tough times. We hope you love this blanket. You have a kind heart. Push forward, you are a cool person. So again, out of the mouths of second graders, right into letters that are going into the hands of people who need it most. So I can tell you myself, Mrs. Wisecarver was in with me during her class brainstorm, and the two of us, like, you put two of the most emotional teachers in one room, and we're all like, all tears and crying. But it was, again, this project, I tell all the kids, I'm like, this project is like my baby. I put my heart and soul into it, and the kids have really put their hearts and souls into it too. So I would like to thank my 6 friends who came to join me today, but for all parents who are watching, community members who are watching, please know Hampstead Central School students are phenomenal, and I could not be any prouder to have led this project and just to hear the amazing messages of empathy and kindness that they came up with. So thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll just say how impressed I am with all the speakers. Thank you so much for coming. It's not easy to ever get up at this podium, especially our second graders, our youngest. Extremely proud of all of you for putting yourself out there, and I sincerely hope that this is not the last time that we see you all at a school board meeting.
Best part of being on the board is when you guys come in and present, so thank you.
All 3 of them. All right, and now moving on to the curriculum presentation with Ms. Nicole Tomaselli.
And can I just say, I'm going to speak out of turn here, but Mrs. Wisecarver, congratulations on being representing us as the Teacher of the Year. We really appreciate it. And it was said before, we gave the kids a clap, we should give one to you. So thank you so much for all that you're doing.
I'll say something too. Just as a parent of children who go to HCS, I feel very fortunate that my children have had or currently have many of those teachers that were mentioned. So extremely thankful for all you do.
And Mrs. McLaughlin, you killed it. It was great. It was great. Great job. Right. Yeah.
Right now I'm like, again, thank you all so much. It was amazing to share my enthusiasm and passion for the project, and the kids just did a phenomenal job. So I'm more proud of them than I am of anything else. So.
Changing people's lives, great work.
Yep.
I should have read the agenda and known that I would be following the students, because that's not the place you want to be on the agenda. I really respect how the kids talk about homelessness as well, because if you listen closely, they talk about it as a temporary state. He was experiencing homelessness or when they were going through homelessness, and it's just so refreshing. Their perspective is just beautiful. So I'm here tonight to talk to you about the math curriculum, our curriculum review and pilot process. So this first slide is a timeline. We're, of course, in the middle of 24-25, looking forward to 25-26, but this process started last year. In the fall, we identified as part of our curriculum review cycle that our math licensing with Big Ideas was running out. And in that process, we decided that we really wanted to kind of search around, look for a tool that's a little bit more in alignment with the standards, it is a little bit more in alignment with best practice, and has more modern teaching kind of methodologies. We are also very committed to OGAP in this district. OGAP stands for Ongoing Assessment Practices, and so we're looking for a tool that can work within that OGAP framework as we try to get all of our teachers OGAP trained through their different modules. So in the fall, we began researching programs. I negotiated a one-year agreement with Big Ideas to buy us a little bit more time and separate out. If you remember, we had an English language arts initiative with Science of Reading just 2 years ago. So our teachers need a little bit of space between two major curriculum initiatives. So we did a one-year license with Big Ideas for the whole district, and then identified a committee in the winter. Identified areas of overlap where we could be doing more hands-on learning, and did a little bit of deep dive into math standards. We can always do more of that, achieve the core type deep dive work, but we started to look at that. We also reserved a half day for a site visit once we had our committee and once we had our tools in mind, and set up some time with NHLI, which sponsors OGAP, and also SHNU in case the grant money for OGAP ran out, which it has, unfortunately, to just ensure that our PD for our teachers is ongoing. So at this point in the year, we have done a pilot from September to November, at both buildings, and we had a vertical meeting at the beginning of the year and one in December to develop our evaluation rubrics and then implement those rubrics. We set some PD goals. And unfortunately, one of our things on here was to send a team to the OGAP proportional reasoning training. That did not happen because the training did not happen. So you will see that in the budget reflected for next year, but unfortunately that's likely not going to happen because of grant funding being absorbed. But we did budget, in this year I budgeted for a 6-year licensing for a math program. We all know with the budget reductions, that is unlikely that we'll get a 6-year contract. So I'm looking at trying to get as much time as possible, maybe 3 years instead of a 1 year, or some other creative option from our vendors. This winter, we have recently just finished our second pilot and met to make a decision. So that's what I'm here to show you tonight. We do use an evaluation rubric, which I'll show you, but I take to heart all the teachers' anecdotal feedback. Our teachers, and I'll show you the list of names of our teachers that presented. Many of them were on the Teacher of the Year list that you heard earlier tonight. These are master teachers, so when they say, I can see this working beautifully in kindergarten, or I'm concerned about this in 4th grade, whatever feedback they have, I document and I listen. And furthermore, it's important to hear what they have to say because it's important to recognize they have a whole team they need to scale this to, or we all need to scale this to. So we have the math lovers on our committee, but we need to scale this across the grade level to people who might feel more passionately about ELA or science or some other discipline. We will be finishing the year with some end-of-the-year professional learning for all staff. Our May 23rd PD Day is allocated for intensive math training of this new program. And then we'll open the beginning of the year for all staff again with another refresher. And then our pilot teachers will continue to work across grade levels. We'll offer refined training throughout the year and set some goals. And then we'll use our data team meetings to review progress. So this is kind of the timeline of the selection process and the pilot. Does anyone have questions about that? No? Okay. So these are the 3 tools that we piloted. Illustrative math we piloted in grades 6 through 8. Eureka Squared, as it's known, we piloted in K through 5. And then iReady Classroom Math we piloted K through 8. and also in algebra. So it's important to know that our 8th grade has an 8th grade curriculum as well as a section of algebra. In some years we have 2 sections of algebra. So we did have those children pilot this year, both illustrative and ready classroom math. We also made the choice to have our 5th grade teacher pilot with the K-5 product. That is a kind of a local decision. Our standards in elementary are broken K-5, even though our buildings are 5 through 8 and K through 4. So these are the math pilot committee members. We have a representative from every grade level, as well as a math specialist. And we did include our new STEAM teacher. Even though she didn't have pilot materials to use with her 5th grade class, she has a wealth of math teaching in her background and has been a math specialist in another district. So I invited her to participate in meetings and, contribute and listen and offer her suggestions. We also had, you'll notice, 2 1st grade teachers participate. And the reason for that is that Mrs. Remillard actually has a math specialist degree. She's not certified yet, but that's something she's very passionate about. So even though she wasn't initially on the math committee, we invited her to join as well. All in all, we had approximately 214 students participate in the pilot, which is about 24% of our school. I realize this font is a little bit small, but this is the rubric that we used as a committee to try to analyze and fairly weigh the different tools. We looked at, from the top, the standards alignment and content quality. We looked at something we feel strongly is building thinking classrooms, which is a math instructional practice right now, as well as ongoing assessment practices. That's OGAP. We felt like could use those frameworks within this product. Depth of knowledge and engagement for students. Instructional and intervention support, of course, is very important for our children who are a little bit struggling to get on grade level sometimes. And then assessment and differentiation tools. And then a row on technology integration and cost effectiveness. I hope this integrates. Good. I pulled a slide in from the assessment presentation that I did earlier in the year. And this is just to show you that our math proficiency is still, competing strongly and outweighing the state performance, but I think we can do better. We have, in the next slide, you can see a little bit of an uptick over time, but I think there are certainly pockets of children that could perform better with the right tools. And I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a teacher who loves any math curriculum in front of them. They're always going to morph it and adapt it a little bit, but I think there are certain segments of our population that could do a little bit better if the tool in front of them had better depth of knowledge and differentiation and manipulatives. So this is how we are currently doing grade to grade. And Joe, can you show the next slide? The next slide shows year, over time, our performance. So you can see like a 4-year look back. And we are inching up in some grades, but I just think we can perform better. And we have some cohorts that are really struggling to get to proficiency, and they deserve better, more aligned tools. This presentation is on the district website if you want more assessment background. So one of the tenets, and the tool we're going to recommend to the board, is going to be Eureka Squared. One of the biggest tenets of Eureka Squared is this concept of read, draw, and write. And this is a beautiful sequence that allows children to read the problem, whatever pieces they can, knowing developmentally that they're not all there yet. In younger grades, the language acquisition is still being developed in early literacy skills. Draw what they know to be true from the problem, and then write about it. And so I've shown you 2 different kind of pictures here so that you can see some of the bar modeling and how it will be represented. You can see the number bond, which is at the top right. It's that one with the little bubbles. It looks like a little triangle or stick figure. That's called a number bond. Math stories are a big part of Eureka Squared. So it not only addresses comprehension, but it puts the ability to apply their learning into like a real life scenario. And then In Eureka Squared, it's composing and decomposing numbers in a variety of different ways. Our teachers felt very strongly that composing and decomposing numbers is such a formative skill, and some programs kind of race past it. Our teachers valued the time spent on this. Go ahead, Jen. Another little slide I wanted to integrate here is the idea that math learning goes from, oftentimes for most learners, from a concrete practice to a pictorial practice to an abstract practice. Many times people want to race ahead to the multiplication. So if you can see the 3 times 4 equals 12 on the far right, you know, some people love to jump to the algorithm and the abstract, but really being able to draw out what is happening with that with an array, or even more concretely, you can see in that same picture the little Unifix cubes that are bundled into groups of 4. That concrete, tangible practice, our pilot committee feels very strongly about. Eureka Squared is heavily reliant on math manipulatives. So we like that. We want math in the children's hands. We want them interacting with Unifix cubes, Reckon Recs, Counting Bears, all the manipulatives we can put in front of them that make sense for the unit. And Eureka does a beautiful job selecting appropriate manipulatives. Next slide. These are some of the quotes from our pilot teachers. And these are things that they said about Eureka. There are a lot of exit tickets involved in Eureka, and many districts we've talked to use those as formative check-ins. There's not a lot of heavy assessments. When we probably went to school, we were familiar with the idea of I'm going to do the unit, I'm going to do my homework and topics, and I have a big test at the end. Eureka's a little bit different. So unpacking this with our teachers is going to take time, and it's going to take a diligent kind of realistic perspective that we're going to go slow to go fast, and the pacing is slow. And I think maybe some of you who have used it, you know, could attest to that. Some people will feel like this is going really slow, but the depth of knowledge the children have from the units that they do early in the year really build a strong foundation for later practice. There's a lot of fluency involved in Eureka. Our teachers felt like it was rigorous, but that it was not tricky. Sometimes rigor can be confusing for children because it assesses their ability to read the word problem rather than to show what they know in math. So our teachers like that. They also felt that it incorporated research-based strategies, and the example Mrs. Burkett was very excited about was select and sequence. She thought that that was very rarely represented in other programs. So I have sent the board earlier today an article about this read, draw, write philosophy that they have, and I've linked it to the presentation. Really, this article talks a lot about coherence. This is something we hear a lot in curriculum world, is coherence of instruction. It's the idea that concepts connect to one another in a way that unfolds naturally and organically for students. It's kind of a holistic way of learning. If you've ever struggled to learn something that's kind of taught in different like phases, but in non-linear ways, it can be a challenge. So coherence of instruction is something that we're forever trying to solidify. So this article points out how that coherence kind of plays out in each grade level. It gives sample problems, and I thought it might be some good background knowledge for the board to have. It is about 10 pages, so we're not going to look at it right now, but this is a nice little kind of background on the program. And then the second article that I've shared with the board is more of an efficacy study that looks at the districts who have adopted Eureka Squared and the gains they've made. And they recommend 2 years of implementation before you're going to see any real significant gains. But I thought this might be interesting to read through as well. Is that the last slide? I thought there was one more. Okay, so this is our pilot kind of results. I'm in the process of talking with our vendors and seeing where we're going to land with the different quotes. I'll be able to bring more financial information to the board next meeting, which is April 8th. But I look forward to your support and a vote at that time for how we move forward. Do you have any questions that I could answer?
So just for clarification, what would be the anticipated length of time that we would purchase this for? Because I know there was, we
Yeah.
talked about different variations and different kind of cost tiers based on how long we own this for.
Yeah, our curriculum cycle right now is 6 years. I don't think we're going to be able to afford a 6-year quote with the current budget constraints. So I'm going to try to get 3 years because I really don't want to be revisiting this in a year. One of the strategies that I am going to try is to extend the pilot for our middle school students who have not participated in a pilot yet. And they have not seen Eureka Squared, and this product does go up through algebra. That might help us a little bit for a year. The other thing I would like to do is try to pay over 2 years if possible. Most vendors will not agree to that, but you know, if we can find some type of bundle arrangement where we pay half in 1 year and the second half in the second year, that could be a more palatable fee structure for a community.
Right.
The other pretty significant cost with Eureka is manipulatives. So our math committee has already decided that we're going to use some of our professional learning time in May to inventory the math manipulatives that we have that will work for this program so that we don't have to buy full-on brand new kits. And Dr. Cheney doesn't know this yet, but they want to do a little sidewalk sale and put all the stuff in the hall and let people have at it. And I know our director of facilities loves a good clean out. So that's what we're going to be doing is cleaning out all the math manipulatives, culling through the old materials that we can't use and really identifying what exactly we need to purchase and what we don't need to purchase that we already have. So we're going to be pretty thrifty about this.
And as far as the curriculums that you looked at, would you say that iReady was kind of second in the running in that decision-making process?
Yeah, so Ready Classroom Math, and they call it Ready Math and a few different things, is a very competitive program. It is incredibly standards aligned, and one of the good things about it is that it gets it all in. It's paced to get all the units in during the school year. The challenge our teachers felt was that it kind of weighed the units equally. And the scope and sequence didn't give enough depth of knowledge time to the units that were more challenging. Now, having said that, they did not pilot Ready Math for the full year, so that is kind of a concern, as we didn't get to do it for a whole year. We didn't get to really live the whole program as it's intended. And same with Eureka. When you pilot 2 programs in a year, you're only doing 3 modules per program. Sure. But it's a competitive product, so, and we already purchase other iReady materials. We purchased their diagnostic, we purchased their teacher toolbox, and we purchased MyPath intervention. So we have the benefit of being able to bundle with other products, and we might get a better financial break from them. But if we take the costs out of it, we feel like Eureka Squared is a better instructional product. And we do think in this town, the performance could be higher in math. We think that the kids could achieve higher if given a little bit more experience with solid instructional practices and better depth tools. So it's a tough choice, but at this point, we're looking at Eureka Squared.
So if there's not summatives in Eureka, do you worry about the ability to track whether students are falling behind, and do you worry at all about interventions and the ability to get students accurate interventions?
I missed the beginning of that. If we're not doing what with Eureka?
The summatives, like for Eureka?
Oh, summatives.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the exit tickets, I think, are going to be essential for every teacher to implement. That is a really important formative check, and I believe every lesson has an exit ticket. So I think that's possibly better than summatives. But there are exams further and tests further as the curriculum goes throughout the year, but you know, it does feel, and the teachers will express, we're going a long time without like a test. But the exit tickets are the formative feedback that they need, and they're used to. We still will have diagnostics to look at, and I think we probably still will be able to purchase MyPath. So we'll have like a running kind of record.
And I
Yeah.
guess for my benefit, you know, if you do have those exit strategy
yeah.
tickets, thank you, exit tickets, and those are the progress monitors for how the students are doing, how, as a district, do we enforce that? And enforce sounds like a really harsh word, but how do we make that a mandatory
Yes.
thing that our teachers go through to make sure that they're assessing our students, and that, you know, if they are falling behind, we're able to identify that early? Like, how
That's
do we
a
control
really
that?
fair question. So we do programs, quote, with fidelity. And Wonders, we kind of said, we are doing this with fidelity. That means that we're not supplementing with things from Teachers Pay Teachers. We're not pulling out the old Journeys books. We are not going to go rogue and design our own things. We're in it to test this program and go with it for a few years until we really are solid with its strengths and weaknesses. So fidelity is the expectation.
And I guess in your role as the curriculum director, how do you monitor that throughout the year?
So I need to be in and observing these lessons more frequently. And also I'm going to lean into our administrative teams, but also the committee members. So we've been doing more and more instructional rounds. Every year I feel like we add instructional rounds in, and we have kind of a different area of focus every time we do an instructional round. And I think this is how you kind of help that along, is to make sure our teachers see each other using the exit tickets, using the strategies, use the manipulatives, because sometimes that's an area of not preferred choice of teaching, is all these manipulatives everywhere can be a little bit much. But yeah, we make that a goal for the building, and then we follow through on our strategic plan with assessing that goal and measuring it, and maybe we do some instructional rounds, maybe we get some feedback from the PLC meetings. So we do have some structures in place, I think, to help us ensure that it's happening.
And I guess sorry, I'm talking
No, it's
a lot.
fine.
The last thing I'd say is, and I guess the challenge I would give is how do we get buy-in from the teachers? I'm from a sales background, so it's all about that buy-in. When you roll out something new, where does that come from? And can we, as a district, for lack of a better term, can we sell it to them of why they would want to use it?
Yeah, and I think this is where the pilot members are going to be absolutely essential, and it's why it's important for me to listen to them. In many districts, someone in my position makes the decision, and they don't bother piloting, or they don't do extensive piloting.
Sure.
And sometimes, unfortunately, financial pressures force that decision. And so we have very vocal teachers on that pilot, and they have already invited colleagues in many grade levels. They've already done little informal walkthroughs.
Awesome.
Their colleagues are curious about these kits and what did you get, and what's that rec and rec thing? Why do it looks like an abacus? What is that thing all about? What are these beaded number lines? Fortunately, Heather Burkett is our OGAP trainer for the district. She's done some open houses with some of the manipulatives to kind of show a little bit here and there, and people are excited. I think, too, the program we're currently using has some major deficiencies. So people are ready for something more holistic, and I think they're ready for something that can push the children further than what we're currently doing. So I might need to lean into some sales techniques, Andy. I don't know. I'll let you know in a few more
keep me
months.
posted.
But I think people are ready for something more robust.
Great.
Are you going to talk again?
I'm good.
Carl?
Well, you can go.
Okay. So I'm like thrilled that you chose Eureka. So having implemented it myself in my current school, it is definitely a learning curve. But I think the more that you stress fidelity, because teachers will be like, oh, it's taking so long. And in some units, it's going too fast. But as you get into it, they start to see that things spiral in, as you're going along. So teachers don't have to be like, oh my God, my whole class is not there yet. I have to stop and reteach this entire concept. But it builds that in later on. So I think as much as you stress that fidelity.
And, you know, they have been good, and they're pretty good at rule following, our elementary teachers. The switch to science of reading 2 years ago that's a tremendous shift for an elementary teacher to make when you think about all of the years and years of guided reading. To transition to structured literacy was a huge ask. And our teachers are doing it, and I think they're benefiting from the practices. In math, I think it will be easier, quite frankly, but I have both the site visits and the trainers and the other teachers we've talked to, because we have friends, of course, in other districts that are using this, have said it feels slow. But we're very good at go slow to go fast. And so that's something that you'll hear me say a lot next year. We're going slow to go fast. And that really means we need kids to have a solid foundation before we rush ahead to the next thing. And the more years into this, the more benefit for the grades above, right? So our kindergarten teachers are going to have to put in a lot of effort with number sense and counting is number formation. They spend a lot of time on that. But the future grades will really benefit from that depth of number sense. There you go. And how many years are you in? Perfect, yeah. A lot of the research will say at least 2 years invested before you see the benefit. Wonderful, yeah.
So interesting when you're talking about spiraling versus
Yeah.
going slow to going fast.
Yes.
Can you just quickly explain what spiraling is or
Yeah.
spiraling curriculum is?
I'm glad you brought it back to that, actually. So a spiraling curriculum is one that, and science curriculum spirals as well, is one where the theme comes up the following year or maybe even later in the year and then brought up again 2 years later, 3 years later, so that the child can consume small components of it every time it's brought back up. So a scaffold, if you think about, like, we often use the term scaffold in education. Think about like when you're building a building and you have the scaffolding on the side of the building. It's a support that gets them to the next level, but then eventually is taken away. And a spiral's a little bit similar in that it layers the instruction on, but you revisit topics so that it helps kids kind of apply and see the connections. We really need to communicate the spiral to families because some curriculums have gone down in a ball of flames because of their spiral. It goes, if the spiral goes too fast, like it did with the very famous Everyday Math story about 10, 15 years ago maybe, Everyday Math spiral was so fast that a homework sheet would have 5 or 6 different types of math problems on there, and parents would be like, what is my kid learning about? So Eureka is a slow spiral, which is what we think will be most effective.
So if a kid learns it, they're going to see it again
They
to
will see
reinforce
it.
it later. If a
That's
kid
true.
doesn't learn it, they'll have the opportunity to learn it again.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, multiple times.
Yeah.
It will be brought back up.
So it's the antithesis of how we're going to teach the teachers. We want the teachers to go slow to be able to
They
learn
have
how to teach it versus the kids. It's okay if they miss something the first time, they'll see it again.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. You were saying, so you saying we might have money for pathways for iReady?
For
Or-
MyPath.
For MyPath?
Yep. So right now I pay for MyPath Intervention, which is an iReady product, and I use our Title IV money to do that. So we all know the title grants are changing. We don't know yet what that allocation will look like, but I do have grant verbiage that will cover MyPath Intervention. So if we do get another similar grant, my thought is we would put our Title IV money, or whatever that money looks like for intervention and student support, towards MyPath.
MyPath is a computer program that allows students to work at the level they're at. And there's also a bunch of gamification
Yep.
so that they actually do enjoy it to try
Yep,
to.
and it's dovetailed with their iReady diagnostic. So if they take a iReady diagnostic in 2nd grade and there are major deficiencies in addition, we'll say, or counting up by Friends of 10, it will dose a lesson to them specific to their learning targets.
And does that integrate with Eureka Squared?
That's a
though?
great question. The answer is no.
Okay.
So we are going to we're going to have to go be careful that the iReady scope is not too fast
Right.
for the Eureka, I'll say, spiral. That is something I'm aware of. We certainly don't want our intervention products racing ahead of our tier 1 instructional product. So these are decisions we'll be weighing out carefully.
So on the note of racing ahead, so the students that are getting interventions can use pathways.
Mm-hmm.
What happens with a kid that is beyond what the math they're doing in the school, in their current class? Is there a way for them to
Yeah.
individually learn or push beyond with that?
Yes, so what you're talking about is extensions. And I just want to clarify that all children, if we do purchase MyPath, up until this point with our grant money, we've purchased licensing for all children. We might have to scale that back and say, this is our math intervention seats, and then our other children might do extension work. And they get that through tier 2 extensions, through WIN groups. Some children go to ventures. We do have a number of hands-on projects, but I would love, and this is part of our math curriculum review, to develop more math labs, more math hands-on projects, and I think that's where you can really extend. Eureka does come with some sample math stories and projects that you can use, but honestly, during the pilot, we didn't have a lot of time to flush those out.
Yeah, because I think it's just as important to help the students
That's
that want to
right.
go beyond as it is the students that are struggling.
Yeah.
And then to do financial due diligence, can you find out what the cost would be to keep Horizons for another year? I do think that we should adopt a new program, and Eureka Squared I do like because it's highly visual and it's highly accessible, whereas iReady depends a lot on language, so if a student struggles with language. But I would like to know what the cost difference would be between the two.
Sure.
Just in case we have to go down that path.
Yeah, yep. I have been talking with both vendors and getting quotes.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to make one comment, sorry.
No, of course.
If a lot of your teachers have participated in the OGAP training, I would think that they would be excited about Eureka Math and hearing more about the foundational skills, and that might be here, so.
I think you're right. The ones that have attended OGAP just love the freedom with this program to teach the instructional strategies and for kids to show what they know through multiple strategies. So our goal is to continue to work with NHLI. We're going to host another round of OGAP this summer. It'll be multiplicative. Our teachers, in some cases, might go to other locations for additive or proportional. And then in the fall, we've already had talks with SNU about hosting it on site here during the school year, because some don't want to attend during the summer. So we'll make it a graduate course here on site, and they can attend during the school year. Yeah, OGAP's an essential piece of the rollout for this new curriculum, similar to letters for our ELA. It's an essential framework, so as many teachers as we can possibly get trained is what we're going to continue to do.
And from a special education standpoint, there's lots of kids that have been moved on, and they are
Yes.
missing some of that foundational stuff, so.
Yes, yeah.
Makes me
Yeah,
happy.
no, we know better, we do better. That's the best we can do. But, thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate all the work both you and the committee have done to make an extremely careful decision on what we propose. Obviously, cost is a factor, and we'll need to hear that in order to make an informed decision, but that doesn't discount the work that went
Yeah.
into coming to these decisions. So
Yeah, our
thank you.
pilot teachers have been extraordinary, and I want to just say the students as well, because the students have had quite a few little ziggers-zaggers, changing programs
Sure.
mid-year and totally different styles, and their teachers are like learning as they go, so it's been a huge undertaking, but everyone's been really wonderful and diligent and careful, so it's been good.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving right along here with a tech update from Mr. Daya.
Good evening, School Board. I'm here to give an update on the district's technology department. Right now, we are currently in a state reporting window. The state submissions that we're applying right now are processed through a new system, a new student information system called ALMA that the state purchased and rolled out, and the name for that is Index. Districts, including our own, are working to get around errors and issues that come with rolling out a brand new system. We are moving along though. They added a new submission window called the middle of year to align with the beginning of year and end of year reporting. These state reports consist of an enrollment submission, a student absence submission, free and reduced submission, and a program participation submission, which is a new one that will include all of our students with 504s. Next, we have the behavior plugin rollout from Marsha Brenna Associates. We are going to be deploying this at both schools. It is currently deployed right now at the Hampstead Middle School. This behavior plugin, we set up discipline log entries and also subcategories, and teachers can fill out discipline referrals that are seen by administration through PowerSchool and doing away with all the paper forms. Teacher staff can also document intervention logs for classroom management. Central School, we have not rolled this out yet, but the beauty of it is we're doing all the work at the district level, so the templates are there, and once I work with the HCS administration, it'll be a quick rollout after we do some training on that. Next up, I have my cybersecurity update. We recently got done with doing professional development training for the staff members at both schools. We updated the staff on the current trends and safety measures within cybersecurity. We discussed the importance of running system updates on their machines. We demonstrated to staff how to identify and report phishing and spam emails and how important that is to be able to identify those. We also talked about the importance of using encryption with email when including personal identifiable information consisting with student data. The Hampstead School District attended a cybersecurity tabletop and members of the district admin, human resources, and payroll department attended this on February 20th. It was held by the Adam Group and Primix at the Hampstead Public Library conference area. There, we reviewed our district policy and our incident response plan. We discussed how the district would operate and communicate effectively during a cybersecurity event and lack of security. The tabletop wasn't as much about preventing it, it was how to communicate and how to function as a district if and when it happens. In the event of a successful attack, we would be shut off from the state educational systems and we would be without devices while we work with our insurance provider and law enforcement to get back up and running. Also, I would like to note that just recently our neighboring district of Pelham has become a victim of a cybersecurity attack. We don't know a whole lot about the incident, but we do know that they are currently without devices and emails, and it's kind of right at our door right now, so it's, we have to stay vigilant and really keep this at our top priority. That's what I have for an update.
How recent was that Pelham attack?
I believe 2 weeks ago. Bob, I think it was about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think it was early last week, so
okay.
It's been about a week.
About a week. Yep.
And this is more of a question or a statement for Bob. Regarding that behavior plugin, I think we could benefit from a mid-year update from Amy Bernard on how things are going, and then I'd be interested from the central school once that's 6 to 8 to 12 months in, just getting an update on how that's going.
Absolutely, yeah. And right now we have that tentatively scheduled for April 8th. Perfect. And you may recall prior to purchasing the plugin, the board had discussed having an update on some discipline behavioral data. So it fits nicely. And I had the opportunity to sit in and just have Amy kind of walk me through the work that her and Joe have been doing. And you want to talk about it is such an incredible tool, especially as we want to be more data-driven in some of our decision-making around discipline. I think the board's going to be very impressed when they see the work that Joe and Amy have done.
Awesome. Great. Any other questions for Joe? Thanks, Joe.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate the time. All right. Moving on to the election results review. So, for a 3-year term, Denise Meyer was elected to school board. Again, congratulations, Denise. on joining the board. Number 2 was around the operating budget. Of course, hopefully most of you know by now that did fail. The collective bargaining agreement for HESPA, the Hampstead Support Personnel Association, did pass. 907 votes to 782. Number 4 was the collective bargaining agreement for HEA, the Hampstead Education Association. That did pass as well. The number 5 is the authorization for special meeting on cost items. That passed. Number 6, the Capital Reserve Fund passed. And number 7, the general acceptance of reports also passed. Board members, any comments, any discussion items around any of these warrant articles or the results?
So for me, when I think about the operating budget, I don't think we knew what was going to happen, but we were worried. I think we're going to get into the budget, the default budget. And I do think we can weather the storm, but I think it's something where we need to be prepared that this may happen again next year or the following year. There are still people that are still worried about money, even though between our budget and the other budget, it was over $1 million increase that got turned down, especially the 55-plus community who are paying $6,000, $7,000 on property taxes when they're living in a senior living community and on a fixed income. I think we may want to be prepared to have outlined, if the budget does not pass, this is the direction that we're going in.
Contingency plan.
Correct, so that I don't think this was a communication issue. I think this was a turnout issue where our turnout was lower than pretty much the last 5 to 6 elections. And if we have, these are the things you're going to have to give up if you don't come out for the schools and the people know ahead of time. At least we've done our due diligence and people are aware of what they're giving up if they don't decide to show up to the polls. But this is obviously a future consideration going forward, but also, having those discussions this year, what do we need to trim this year versus what happens next year, so that both we have the conversations at the same time. So when we run into budget season the next year, we know what will be in that default budget, what would be cut if we got going down to that floor. So.
Yeah, to echo some of that, I think education, I know we do offer, obviously, the public meetings of budget creation, allowing the public to come in and see line by line the things that are listed in the proposed budget, and they get to hear us, and they get the opportunity to ask questions about why that thing is in there. And the department heads are faced with having to justify that. And going back to sales and kind of selling that, we need to do a better job as a board and as a district, I think, publicizing that and inviting people and getting people in the room to hear it, because when you actually hear those conversations and you see the line items, you realize what it takes for a school to operate, just in general. And I think the more we know, the more we can educate people on that, the more informed they are going into the voting season.
I think that's noble. We also need to have something that is a very small bite that you can post. These are the things that you're losing if you don't vote for the budget, that somebody can see. And a lot of it was, there was a lot of conversation about the tax increase, and we don't like the tax increase, and it was fairly easy to digest, versus a whole budget. If we can just have a one-off, like, if you don't vote for the budget, this is what you're losing, I think will create a discussion in the community. Because I think we did give a very in-depth explanation, but on average, we have like 8 to 10 people online, and we have to be able to give a easier to digest version of that.
Agreed. Board members, any other comments around these items? Okay. Moving on to the default budget discussion with Mr. Dowd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So our operating budget failed, and our default budget will become our new operating budget for the year. Our default budget is put together in statute. It's based on the current year appropriations. Those are the ones that were voted a year ago, March 2024. We add certain legally required items, take away and remove one-time items, and we make certain other adjustments within the calculation itself. You have in front of you tonight, or you should have in front of you, an MS-22, which is our voted appropriations. That voted appropriation schedule shows the figures in our appropriations by function code based on where that default budget calculation ended up. That default budget does not suit the needs of the district, and so the board is allowed a one-time reallocation of the budget under a case called Sullivan v. Hampton. It was a case out of Rockingham Superior Court, wherein the default budget was found to, since it was such a major change from what the operating budget was, that the board be allowed, select boards, school boards, would be allowed a one-time reappropriation or reallocation of funds under that budget. So instead of looking at the default budget and the calculation, how we came up with it, that'll be on the MS-22, which I'll ask you to review and sign. A better approach is to look at our operating budget and to decide on some reductions from that operating budget number to bring it in line with the amount that was appropriated under the default budget. Superintendent has issued a memo, which is up on the screen, and some of this is explained in that memorandum, as well as what some options are to get to that $557,807 reduction that we'll need before our budget is finally adopted, I guess, by the district. And Bob, I'll turn it over to you if you have any further information on those proposed cuts.
Sure. I just want to offer a little bit of explanation. So the memo that you have in front of you and will be made available online, if you were to tally up all of the reduction areas that we're looking at, it exceeds the $807,000. The total is actually $645,051. And so there's a delta of roughly 87,000. The reason for that is I feel it's really critically important that we are going to bring to the board a new recalculated recommended budget on April 8th. And the board will deliberate and will take action on that budget. However, the path to go from what was proposed to the default requires a lot of really tough decisions. And I know that the board takes interest in how we get there. And so for the benefit of the public, you should be aware that I have provided this list to the board. They've given me individual feedback. This is the first opportunity that the board will have to engage in a discussion about this. I'm going to listen very carefully, and then what I'm going to do is work with Mr. Dowd to be able to bring you a new budget on April 8th that reflects the values that the board represents and some of the conversation that I heard. I'll just I'm not going to go through every item because it may come up during discussion. And again, we're only looking to get to the 557 number. So we have the middle school stage, we have HMS late bus, we have the Pinkerton late bus. These decisions are driven by ridership. The middle school oil tank is something that we believe needs to be done, but we also believe that based upon recent inspections, we could defer that to next year. I would recommend to the board next fall that we put this out as a separate warrant article and look to fund this through capital reserve. This provides the voters, some greater say in the expenditures of the district. 7th and 8th grade lit books. Administrative salaries, so this is just a decrease in the cost of living adjustment or incentives that we give to our administrators annually. We'll reduce conferences, 5,400, device cases, 6,650, Summer Learning Academy, 25,000. This essentially, there are components that we would keep. Camp Invention is an obvious one. We just ask parents to pay for them. Summer Learning Academy was funded through the COVID funds that we received. This really was to combat learning loss. We think it has served its purpose, but we do think that there is a future for Summer Learning Academy, just maybe not in the same form that it is now. Turnover savings, we have some retirements in the district, and generally speaking, when there's a retirement, a new teacher comes in and they're usually lower on the salary schedule. I caution us with this because it is our belief, and we value the fact that we hire for talent. We don't hire to save money necessarily in the budget. So that 30,000 is, I would say, a very conservative figure. HMS professional staff members. So now we're going into the territory. The community may recall in the fall, the board tasked the administration with cutting 400,000. I heard repeatedly throughout that process that it was a priority to not eliminate staff. And we got to 400,000 and we came razor close to cutting staff. We can't get to 557 without cutting staff. It is not possible. So I just preface that by saying, like, this is not ideal. We don't want to do this. And we believe we've forged a path that has the least disruptive educational impact to students. But more importantly, we also have a path that I believe does not result in us actually having to do a reduction in force. We can do this through attrition without having to lay anyone off, which I believe I heard Mr. Mesa Tejada mention earlier in his statement.
Yeah, to clarify, you're saying a reduction of positions, not a reduction of people.
A reduction of positions and not people.
Okay.
So now that I preface that, we'll go through that. So we are considering the reduction of an HMS professional staff member. That would likely be the newest position that was added, which would be the STEAM position. Again, we'd be looking at a reassignment of people in the person in that role. HCS admin assistant, we have admin assistant, as I've communicated at a previous meeting, that's retiring. We would look to essentially do a rearrangement of the existing individuals in that office. An HCS support staff member and an HMS support staff member, and I want to be clear about what we mean by support staff. So these are our paraeducators. These are categories of individuals that work in our office, they work in our library, they work in technology. This is a cut that I believe we can avoid. And I also would say that because special education support staff are really mandated by IDEA, if we were to have to make a reduction, we would really reassign somebody into special education, but I'm hoping not to necessarily to do that. Then the HCS Student Services Coordinator, again, we tried, that is in an IDEA grant, it will stay there. Preschool supplies, we can fund that through IDEA. We got approval in the IDEA grant that was after our budget had passed. And then just reducing some lines such as furniture and field trips. We'll still buy new furniture, we'll still have field trips. We're just going to get more creative about how we do it. So with that said, I'll turn over to the board. Comments, thoughts, questions, so that we can come back in 2 weeks and give you an accurate, recalculated budget.
For me, I really appreciate what you put together. I have significant concerns about facilities long term, not necessarily this year, but next year. The inflation cost on the stuff we're going to be using, the oil tank, looks like it's going to be going up significantly over the next year. we still have the leach field that is sitting out there. We can't keep pushing back facilities. So like next year, if we go to default, I don't think facilities is a place that we should go into. I think this needs to be a one-off for 1 year. And I don't really want to touch capital reserve because we need to build that up, because eventually we're going to have to build more classrooms, because we've seen with the enrollment, and we have to be prepared in case we do move up the state list to be able to fund that. And it looks like that's going to be a tough road to get through the taxpayers. So we're going to have to need to keep building up cap reserve on that side. And there's things that aren't here that other districts are considering. There's districts that went to default that are looking at making extracurriculars and sports pay to play. There's a number of different things, reduction in staffing to pushing this stuff out, because we are locked into our teacher contracts. And I do think while retirement teachers may have some benefit, because we have the teachers that are retiring have lifelong insurance, that benefit is not nearly as big as it is in others. The new staff is going to be the new staff plus their insurance plus the retiring staff's insurance. So you're looking at whatever the base salary is, you're probably looking at another $50,000 on top of that. So that replacement isn't going to see much of a savings within this district, which are all things that are coming into play. Like Jorge was talking about, 78% goes to salaries. And the longer we can keep teachers in this district, the better, and the more experienced teachers anyways are better off. So we definitely want to keep them here. And I think, again, I'd like this for this year, but like looking forward to next year, I do think we have to, when we look forward to next year, that facilities needs to be at the top to not cost us more money in the future. So.
Board members, any other comments around any of these line items?
I would say just prioritizing anything that can be moved to a grant is probably the number one.
I mean, I think we've said that before, and then I think it's a great idea to talk about the oil tank going on a separate warrant. You know, I think that's important.
With the middle school stage replacement, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, but this has been included and taken out of several budgets over the years?
Yeah, it has, and I really feel, I thought this was the year, right? And, you know, we can get by another year, and we can get creative, and we can try to see if there are organizations out there that would, you know, maybe want to help fundraise money. I would say that if we do take it out, this is where everything you say can and will be used against you. I think we got to make it a priority next year. You know, because it's been on the chopping block for, I think since I've been here. So.
You mentioned, you know, getting creative around the furniture replacement cycles with that reduction. I guess, can you speak to how we get creative or what we do when costs get reduced? What would we tackle in terms of replacing as far as furniture goes?
Yeah, well, so specifically, I think I can have maybe Dr. Chang talk a little bit about HCS, but I can just tell you, like, you know, we take donations of furniture. It's just tough because products need to be fire rated. They need to be in certain condition. The office at our central office, the office suite next to us, they moved out, and they were gracious enough to donate a lot of furniture. And as I think the board is aware, we gave some of that to the library here, who had been requesting, but we'd already cut that money out. So, Dr. Chang, just want to talk just very briefly about furniture replacement cycle?
Sure, yes. So we were working toward a 5-year replacement cycle. This reduction just prolongs it a little bit longer, but what I've prioritized in here is specifically our second grade desks. Those are they're pretty old and pretty poor shape, so that's what we would focus on first for next year with this reduction.
Board members, any other items for discussion around the default budget?
And I do want to say that, even if there's not a lively discussion, it's not through the lack of diligence on the part of the board. I really have spent, since the vote, I would say considerable amount of time, whether electronically or through phone calls, chatting with all of you individually. And so I appreciate, you've asked a lot of really tough questions and, overturned a lot of rocks. And so I think we've arrived at this point that, you've at least said your piece to me. I get a sense with some of the things on here that, we're not going to touch. We talked about some concern about, special education contracted services. Okay, so, we, under the leadership of Mrs. McDonald, have, become very efficient and are utilizing these funds to the best of our ability. So we are looking at some cost savings and reading contracted services. But the unpredictability with the rate of increase in special ed, I heard from you that might be an area that we don't want to touch. So I have a pretty clear direction based upon the individual feedback that I received, and we'll continue to take feedback from not only the board, but the community, so that we can come back on April 8th and give you what we feel confidently is the best revised budget to move forward with.
Great. Board members, any other questions or comments before we move on?
No.
Okay. All right, moving on to the state building aid update with Bob Thompson.
Yeah, so just real quick, as the board knows and the community is aware, we have an application in to receive building aid. There is a list that is ranked. If you went on the DOE website, you'd see that it says that we're 8. That list hasn't been updated since 2022. We're more like 4 or 5, depending on how you want to look at the application. So just wanted to make the board aware that we have to submit a letter of intent to remain on the list, which is due May 1st. We're going to do that. That doesn't create any financial commitment. It just makes certain that we don't lose our spot. And just a little bit real quick, just to always keep this on the radar. Our building application currently is at $7.5 million for a $7.5 million project. If it were to be approved, it gets adjusted for inflation because that number is now a few years old. That would build the 4 classrooms off of the 60s wing, and would also build a main office suite where the courtyard is. That would have a nurse's office, conference room, administrator offices, and then on the second floor, a library. So that's the current plan. Obviously, if we were selected, the current rules allow for us, we have 3 years to get it approved by voters. We can also make some modification to the project. It would have to be approved by the Department of Ed. The bad news is that the budget that the governor has submitted does not contain any funding for any new projects, just projects that are outstanding. So that's sort of the deflating balloon when it comes to building aid. So I'll entertain any questions that the board might have.
Any questions? Okay, moving on to the communication planning update.
Yes, so we have had previous discussions about, and it came up tonight, about the importance of, thank you for coming, of the importance of communicating, to our residents. And we had really, I would say, several events in the lead up to the vote, but 2 that I thought were pretty noteworthy. And first, we had Andy, who put together a great presentation explaining what building aid was. It was a sort of a voice-over presentation. The feedback that I received and that I saw online was very positive. And then the second one was an event that we held on March 10th, which we called Know Before You Vote. And it was just really an informal conversation. We ran through the warrant articles, asked questions. And so Andy and I, in planning for tonight's meeting, said, let's make this an ongoing thing. Let's build some momentum. Let's not make communicating around the needs of the district or the budget like this annual thing that happens. We should be doing this all the time. And so, I just put out there for the board, one of the ideas that we have discussed, and this has also been discussed in conversations I've had with Missy, is, could we plan something as early as the April 8th meeting, maybe do some type of presentation from 6 to 6:45 before the board meeting, and perhaps a listening session, maybe inviting folks in to say, hey, look, the budget did not receive a majority vote of the community. Let's talk about that. And so we just make sure that all voices are heard, and then that is feedback that can drive some of the decision making. And then with the voiceover presentation, can we jump back into that? Is there another topic that we feel like we could inform the community? So just wanted to throw that out there, see what the thoughts of board members were.
Yeah. Board members, any ideas, anything you feel passionate about in terms of communicating to the public? Sure.
So I obviously feel strongly about communications as part of my day job. I do think it's a good idea to keep an open dialogue with the community on a more ongoing basis, certainly. It's also a little bit about meeting them where they are. So I do know that's challenging for people to come out, especially at the evening, in person. There's a number of other resources in town that we could partner with and liaise with, like the public library, leaving things in town hall, so maybe things are printed for those who prefer to read through materials. So probably just a little bit more of a thorough communication plan that hits several different points, and again, kind of meeting people where they are, different formats. The video was great. It was very well done. It was succinct. People have, time is precious. So it communicated a lot of great information in a very timely manner. But I would concur with trying to do something year-round.
Yep. To echo what Bob said, I definitely didn't want that special ed building aid presentation to be, I said building aid, state aid and federal aid, to be the last communication that we go through. So it's not the last 5-minute presentation that I plan on doing, but I guess some ideas that we had kind of floated out there was, as we hear more state bills out there that impact education, federal bills that impact education, an idea was kind of listing the tools that the public can go through to educate themselves on those bills, to share their thoughts on the ones that specifically impact education. How do you contact your representatives? And I love the idea of physical handouts and meeting people where they are. So if we can put something tangible together on top of a succinct 3 to 5 minute presentation that hold people's attention. That's just an idea that I had, but again, I guess I would challenge the board to continue thinking throughout the year what types of presentations we feel like the public would benefit from. Any other questions or comments for Bob or myself?
So if there is no objection, I will work with my team to plan something for the April 8th, like a 6 to 6:45. And then Andy, as the liaison, you and I can communicate and talk about what role the board may want to play in that.
Great.
And then, the March 10th event was not well attended, but, sort of to your point, Denise, people are busy. We're asking them we're adding a layer of to having them come here. But even with a small number of people, it was such a really good conversation. And okay, so like maybe we have to have like 1 million micro conversations to really make sure people understand who we are, what we do, what our story is. Great, let's do it, and we'll meet people where they are. And I guess that's my pitch to the people at home is like, name the place, name the time, name the format. It could be a phone call, it could be a cup of coffee, it could be coming to a meeting. We'll make it work for you. And I think that's really what we have to, like, we are accessible to you. And in some cases of the board, 24 hours a day, whatever you need. And we just got to make sure that that message gets out. There was a gentleman who said something so profound at the meeting that's really stuck with me. At the Know Before You Vote, he said, I've always been pro-education. I've lived in the town for 20 years, and I have supported every budget. I'm coming here out of fairness to you to tell you I don't know that I can do it this year, because of his taxes. And it was great at the end of the presentation where we had a really great conversation where he said something to the effect of, okay, I'll give you one more year. That's the type of work that I think that we need to keep doing. So we'll put something together for the 8th. Our team will work on it. We'll get a graphic out there, and then we can, Andy, you and I can talk about like the planning and what that might look like. So,
excellent. Okay, moving on to the 2024-2025 superintendent evaluation cycle. So this process is a 360 evaluation process that we do of the superintendent annually. So that involves gathering feedback from not only the board, but various groups, administrators, teacher feedback. That's what makes it the 360 view. And just to give some highlights here, so the first meeting following the distribution of the compiled responses, the board will go into a non-public session to discuss the evaluation results. No later than May 31st, we'll go into a non-public session to approve the written evaluations of the superintendent. No later than June 15th. The chair and the vice chair will meet with the superintendent to review the results of the evaluation, and then immediately following the meeting, with the superintendent, we will provide a signed copy of the evaluation letter to the Human Resources Administrator to be placed in the superintendent's personnel file. And this is in accordance with policy CBI-R. Board members, any questions or comments around the 360 evaluation cycle?
So I have liked this in the past. I do have some concerns about when we're looking at direct reports. Are the direct reports in touch with how the teachers feel?
Yep.
And I feel like that is something I don't want to undercut authority of the building level administration and stuff like that, because sometimes what they say is more representative of the administration directly versus the superintendent as a whole. But I do think looking at something where they have some ability to give feedback and we can get a feel for that. I don't actually know what that is.
I certainly see value in that. The thing I would caution is I fully agree. I want the lens of the teacher feedback really throughout the year, because Bob and the administrators are kind of our eyes and ears in terms of that, but hearing it from them is a lot more impactful and meaningful. The thing I would caution is, or the thing I would ask is, do we really want to incorporate that feedback into the evaluation of the superintendent?
I like this current format. I think at the very least, if you can kind of maybe explain at the next meeting how you get feedback and how you stay in touch with what building level personnel are doing. I know you did roundtables at one point. Like, how do you and how does the administration keep in touch with what they're thinking, even if we don't get necessarily that information from them, so that we can understand the process better? I think would be helpful.
Yeah, I'd absolutely be willing to share that. And, the other piece too is, we can always review this policy, whether it's at the policy committee level or discussions here about, and I'm not trying, we have a policy, so we want to stick with it, but just to be a little creative is, the direct reports can provide the feedback tool that they fill out and provide to you. They can provide that to their staff and create a mechanism in which they're getting feedback from their direct reports that they can try to articulate in the feedback that they give you, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I do want to honor, our communication protocol where the principal serves as the liaison. They are the person to communicate with the superintendent. But obviously it's important that we're getting feedback at all levels. And, there are surveys that go out at various times of the year. Admittedly, I would tell you we should do it more often. And at the end of the year, I do send a survey to all staff soliciting feedback. It's pretty straightforward and simple. What are the strengths of the superintendent's leadership? Where are some areas for growth? How can the superintendent better support you? And all of our administrators do the same thing. It's the same format. We have sort of changed the rules of the game over the last few years. So now they send that out to their staff. Previously, they saw the feedback and they would report to me what they saw and heard. And last year we changed it. So now I get to see the feedback. So, trying to work in a mechanism where, some of that feedback gets, filtered up to the board, I think is worthy of some discussion and maybe revision of the policy.
Yeah, and I think if we're going to change it, we want to change it to an accurate instrument that has been proven places, not kind of do an ad hoc, kind of figure it out. But I think it was something that I've had conversations about that I think could be valuable for us over the long term, even though I do think you're doing an excellent job.
Thanks.
Board members, any other discussion around the evaluation? Okay. Did I? Yes.
If you don't tell us to.
I appreciate that. Yes. I will direct the SAU to begin the superintendent evaluation process now that we have had the reorganizational meeting.
And in accordance with
In accordance with CBIR.
Thank you. I'll have that in the minutes for sure. I appreciate that.
Melissa, always
Good at
keeping
what she
me
does.
honest. All right, board members. Moving on to the board liaison assignments discussion. So annually, we volunteer to be liaisons for these various committees. In your packets, you have last year's assignments, and we need to assign them for the upcoming school year. So I guess we can discuss, are there committees that you feel passionate about taking or keeping or dropping because they exhausted you this year?
I would like to stay on the safety committee, but I am open to somebody else. For vouchers, I think somebody else should do it, because if you're not running again next year, we want somebody to gain the experience this year while you can also help them so that they're prepared to take it on. Not that you won't answer our phone calls if we have questions once you're off the board, but yeah, that's about it for me.
Fair enough. Does anyone feel interested or excited about taking on vouchers and reviewing line-by-line expense items? It's really riveting stuff. So I mean, personally, I don't mind it. I'm happy to stay with it. If no one wants to take it, I do see the value in training someone else, but I haven't made my mind up officially on running for next year or not. So again, if there are no takers, I will gladly keep it.
I will take the hit for the team if nobody else wants to do it, but we can also talk to that next time. Do we want to quickly go over what each one is for our new members?
Sure.
So
I was just going to ask that. Thank you.
Yeah. So first we have the HCS Regular Education and Curriculum Liaison. So obviously that's working with the Central School and Dr. Cheney on any significant changes around curriculum, any items related to regular education. Obviously the HMS Regular Education and Curriculum would be the same, only at the middle school level. Student Services Liaison, Missy, you were in that, and did you want to talk about some of the duties of that position?
kind of the first five, the HCS, HMS, Student Services, Facilities, Technology, is mostly budget time, and there's not a lot of stuff that you do outside of the budget time.
Yep, great point. So in the public meeting that we go through during budget creation, that's where you sit side by side or face to face with the department head or principals or whoever's the head of that committee and discuss line by line items of what's in their budget, and you get to ask questions. Facilities. Dr. Hubner, I guess that was, you said first four or five, first five were around
mainly
budget
season. Yeah, liaison with the person who comes up with that part of the budget.
With the wellness committee, it's involving student wellness, so we discuss potential, I guess, communication plans around student wellness. We work closely with the cafeteria staff on what meals they're serving, conforming with state guidelines around nutrition. So it's a cool lens into really around the food that our students eat and an opportunity to kind of weigh in on that. The committee's great. It's a well-rounded committee made up of several different roles in the district. So. The policy committee is there, obviously, to review any policies that we want to put forward to the board. So again, that's made up of department heads, board members, Bob and Jeff are on the committee as well, and this would be any policies that need review or need to be repealed. Again, it's that preliminary stage where we ask questions around the policies, we propose new language in the policies before presenting it for first and second read to the board.
It is really good for somebody new to be on because it helps you to understand the intricacy of how language is and
fully agree.
The legal stuff, and yeah.
Safety committee. So you sounded passionate about that. I would love to hear what that's all about.
We're not allowed to talk about what happens at safety committee.
What happens at safety committee stays the same.
It really is. It's looking at safety procedures and different things, drills, how we do stuff, the table, like results of tabletop and stuff like that. I just really like it because I used to do firefighting, and school security is also a big thing for me. And I think we actually do a really good job in this district, but yeah.
And then for vouchers, I already kind of explained it. It's reviewing line by line the expenses that go out the door in the district and being able to ask Jeff and anyone else questions when I need to of why we're spending the money that we're spending. So it's a careful review of all of that. Missy, did you want to talk about the communication committee?
So you have to talk to yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. And then Carl, around the NHSBA delegate, can you talk about what you did last year in regard to that?
So once a year, you go to Concord. There's a delegate from each one of the districts. There's 86 districts that have a high school, but there's like
113.
What is it?
113 SAUs.
There's 113 SAUs. There's probably 80 of them that are in the New Hampshire School Board Association. And you just talk about how the New Hampshire School Board Association will lobby. They're very smart in trying to take fights that are actually worthwhile. They do testimony at it, and that delegation kind of guides it. And then I'm also now on the executive board for the New Hampshire School Board Association, which we meet 3 times a month. And they actually have really good trainings, including new school board training. So I'll send you that link because it's helpful.
Yep. Bob's already on it. As far as I know, she got the orientation links.
Yeah.
All right. So in our next meeting on April 8th, we will come back and decide on official assignments for these committees, for the liaisons. So in that time between now and then, think carefully about which ones you're interested in, and we'll decide in our next meeting. All right. Moving on to the first read of 9 policies, a lot of policies today. Board members, in your packets, you have IHCD, advanced coursework, advanced placement courses, LEB, also advanced coursework and advanced placement courses, GBK, staff complaints and grievances, JRA, student education records and information, ACAC, Title IX, sexual harassment policy, the BC board member conflict of interest. Number 7 has to do with food service meal account balances, policy EFAA, also in number 8. And then number 9 is IHBCA, the policy around pregnant students.
Bob, do you think you can do a quick rundown on each one of these, like what the changes are?
Wow, that is a tall order.
That
we're
is a
talking
tall
about.
order.
Sure. So just, several of these, they're really, I would say, some housekeeping items in terms of us, we aspire is a good word, to have our policies be updated every 3 years. We're still working on policies that go back to the early 2000s, but we're making our best effort. So some of these are really simply just updating policies to align with recommendations from New Hampshire School Board Association. And I would say that that's the case with advanced coursework, advanced placement. This really is just making sure that we have the latest, greatest policy. There's nothing substantive there. GBK, staff complaints and grievances, same thing in terms of just making sure that our current policy follows some minor changes in the law. But there's, nothing of substance in terms of what's changing. JRA, student education records and information. We had our policy had indicated that we had 60 days to provide parents with an educational record. that changed several years ago, but wasn't reflected in the policy. So we're making sure that that's included with the updated 14-day requirement. Sexual harassment policy, there were some, this is one of those ping pong balls that policies generally change every time there's a new administration in DC. And so that is the case with the updated ACA. And we're actually anticipating that there could be some further changes with that. Board member conflict of interest. This was just an item that was brought to my attention by a community member. So we updated the policy to include some references to the statute, which is RSA 95:1. Mr. Dowd, do you want to talk about DO real quick?
Policy DO is our old policy. It's been in place for quite a while. It is in need of a couple updates, including some language that we never enforced on involving serving students meals when there's no balance to pay for it. The proposal is to repeal policy DO, and NHSBA has reclassified their model policy as a policy under E. Policy is EFAA, and that's the subsequent policy to that. So policy DO would be repealed. I believe we have a procedure DO-R that, if it has not already been repealed, will be repealed in favor of the new policy EFAA. EFAA incorporates, to the extent that I really didn't want to dismantle it, to create a policy and a procedure. We just left it in one document because it combines, sample policy combines both. The only thing with this policy, I think Bob had just mentioned a ping pong, and I can't think of a better way to describe it. At the end of that policy, there is a section on non-discrimination, and the current USDA policy is a little bit further advanced over what was provided by the NHSBA and their model policy. So having taken a look at that, we'll end up supplementing that with some additional language relating to gender identification and a few other things. And I say a ping pong because that's what the USDA is going for now. Who knows if we have that language in there next year? Who knows? Lose funding or go to jail or something. But right now, that's their recommended policy. So I'd like to make sure that we can add that at the end. So just be advised if you do move this policy on, which I'd appreciate. In fact, this is something that we had a food service review by the Department of Education, the USDA review, that it was brought to our attention was out of place. And so the urgency on this policy had actually risen to the level of whether we should waive second reading to make sure that it's in place. I think we can hang on to what we have, let the public, and go through normal course on this if this is moved forward through first reading to address it at the next meeting in April, to do a second read final implementation in April. And you will see as part of that policy the slightly changed and more inclusive language currently recommended by the USDA.
So just to clarify, based on the DOE rules and being in compliance with those, is your recommendation to try to fast track this and skip the second reading and move toward adoption, or are we good to run this through the normal path of review?
Yeah, if the board was inclined to move it through and skip second and waive second reading, I wouldn't object to that, but I do think that we have time on it. And if there are offending pieces in policy DO as it is right now, we're not enforcing or acting on them anyway. So even if we have a policy that says something that should be updated, we're not following that section anyway to the letter. So we're covered either way. If you wanted to advance it, that's fine. I know that's a little bit more of an involved process to waive second reading in terms of posting and all of that. So I'm very, very comfortable if you just move that along with the rest of the policies as part of first read. We'll take another look at it next month as part of the second read and put it into place.
Okay. As long as you're comfortable with that,
yeah,
and there's no repercussions to that, I would advocate to move that one to second reading and follow the same path.
Perfect.
As the rest of these. Around the conflict of interest, as Bob mentioned, that was brought up by a community member, so it was a good time to put that into our list of policies to review, just to kind of educate the public on what this policy says and means. A board member who has a personal or private interest in a matter, such as being related to a staff member or working in a business that may benefit them if they were to make a decision, they are required to disclose that interest to the board. They will not deliberate on that matter. They will not vote on that matter, and they will not attempt to influence other members on that matter, again, where there is that conflict of interest.
I think something on the note of that was that this could cause a major issue. There are a number of school board members throughout the state that have family relations that are working in the district that they're in, and it is more common than I think most people realize. And there are policies and procedures in other districts that do cover that.
Right. Yep. And it is really up to the board member to use their best judgment of where they feel there's a conflict of interest. It's great that we have a policy spelling all of this out, but it's up to us as board members to police ourselves where we see a potential conflict of interest and be fully transparent and actively recuse ourselves from things where that conflict exists.
And I think with RSA 95:1, it is still fairly broad in its definitions. And I think that's part of the issue is wouldn't it be wonderful if we had a clear list of these are items that you have to recuse yourself on, and these are items you can vote on. The law doesn't do that. What the law does is it compels the board and our policy not only on conflict of interest but also on board member ethics. That you're managing and disclosing conflicts of interest, you're recusing yourself when you believe it's appropriate, and you as board members are policing one another under that code of ethics. And if you believe somebody was not acting in good faith, the board could take action, which could include petitioning the Superior Court for the removal of that board member. So.
Board members, any questions on any of these other policies? Okay. I will make a motion to move these 9 policies to second reading. Any other questions or discussion? All approved. All right, board comments and correspondence. So for me, I did receive a letter back from Representative Regina Birdsell in regard to the letter that we sent around special ed funding and state funding and federal funding. And I am going to read the response that she sent. So it says, "Dear Andy, thank you for contacting me regarding special education funding. I agree that we have a responsibility to meet the educational needs of all of our students, including those with special needs. But I must reject the claim that the state has failed to provide support for special education students. When Congress first passed the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, 50 years ago, it promised to fund up to 40% of the costs it was imposing on local school districts. As you know, the federal special education funding has never come close to that aspirational goal. Federal funding for IDEA has barely increased since 2020. In its place, the legislature has stepped up by increasing our funding for local special education services. The new student-centered education funding formula passed 2 years ago targets additional state adequacy payments for special education students. In fact, we've increased this component of special education funding by more than 10% over the past 4 years, from $58.9 million to more than $65 million. The state of New Hampshire has long provided additional aid through the special education program aimed at helping local school districts with the most expensive services. We have increased this program from $30.8 million in 2020 to $33.9 million in 2024. Special education costs have risen even higher, forcing the state to prorate special education aid for qualified expenses. Filling this gap is one of my top priorities in this budget, and it's my hope that we will be able to fund 100% of qualified special education program expenses in 2025 and 2026. As a member of the Senate Finance Committee, I will be prioritizing special education in this budget. I also believe we need to address the rapid increase in costs that do little to provide improved services to special education students. Thank you again for sharing Hampstead's perspective on this challenging issue. So first, I'll just say I appreciate her response and taking the time to send that our way. I guess in regard to the 40% that has been promised federally through IDEA, I guess when it comes to advocating for your constituents, I would challenge her and others to be pushing to the federal representatives to meet that 40%. I think our representatives can do more to speak up on our behalf in terms of that.
Question on the letter, did it go to our executive council member? Because it's not listed as one of the people.
It did not. But what I can do is, because I do recall that the board had asked to have it sent to them, I will do that. That's good, because it'll keep this front and center.
Yeah, because I'm going to totally social studies nerd. New Hampshire's unique in the idea that the executive council, along with the governor, is 6 votes, and the governor basically is just a tiebreaker if it's 3-3. So the executive council has a huge, has more power than senators and is influential. And I think a lot of people don't know that or don't think about that. So. Yeah.
And lastly, I'll just say I do appreciate that, she wants to make it a priority in the creation of the upcoming 2025-26 budget for the state, and I really hope that happens. Board members, any other questions or comments around this letter?
I am going to make a comment. I'm happy that she wrote back to us. She's the only one that wrote back to us out of the 5 people we sent it to, including the governor. I also would challenge our representatives to make up this 40% that is imperative to our state from the federal government. And as far as her last comment about there is an increase in special ed costs, but I question the little to provide improved services to our special education students, and I would question what she means by that. That's all.
Okay. Board members, any other questions or comments?
There is legislation right now that's looking at putting budget caps on each individual's district statewide. Bob, do you have on that, if that's gotten to the Senate? The budget cap, every district would have to get a budget cap from the state government?
Yeah, so my understanding, and again, this stuff is moving so quickly that it oftentimes is hard to keep up, because we do track legislation very carefully, is that, so we are in the process of, the legislature's in the process of crossover. So any bill that has any financial implications has to go to education finance. So passed in the House by, I believe it was 8 votes, went to education finance, and now it will be crossover. It will go to the Senate. And there is talk that it will pass the Senate based upon just voting records. And so it's something that we really need to pay close attention to. It would have significant implications for us as a school district. And I also fear, too, that it really denies this board local control, which I know is a really important concept in this town. So.
Yeah, I think for a long time, there's been a lot of talk about local control and now all of a sudden it feels like it's getting pulled away. And I do feel like if that bill gets momentum before our next meeting, that we should, well, I don't know actually if you can draft another one of these letters, and to consider that if it has momentum to send it out again, because there's our close by district that lost both the budget and got budget capped, and long term that's going to cripple them. And I feel like the town did exactly what it wanted to do, which was vote down the budget, but it has the ability then to vote the budget next year if need be. And I feel like we should keep that in our local choice.
Yep. On a much lighter note, I had the opportunity to attend Seussical the Musical, and it was amazing. The play at the middle school, it was so good. I love going to the middle school plays. This play in particular had a lot of 5th and 6th grade students, so younger students than we typically see. Mostly you see lots of 7th and 8th graders, and I'm not discrediting the 7th and 8th graders that perform, but I was just super impressed by having this kind of trend younger and seeing these performers that we're going to be able to see for the next 4 years. So it was funny, it was entertaining, great singing, great acting, so major kudos to everybody that is brave enough to get on stage and do it. Board members, anything else to share? Okay, moving on to our personnel report.
So one item for the personnel report, it is the resignation of a professional staff member. That is Eliza Wixon as the HCS special education teacher / case manager, and that resignation is effective immediately. If the board has any questions regarding that, you need to have a vote to go into a non-public session.
Okay. And then the superintendent's report.
Do we have to accept that?
Sorry. I will make a motion to accept the resignation of Eliza Wixon.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All approved.
I'd like to thank her for doing special ed, which is a very hard job. So appreciate it.
All right, I'll be brief because I know we're in the home stretch. I also saw Seussical. I thought it was awesome. What I thought was really impressive was it's this musical that just is like, an hour and a half of nonstop singing, dancing, and it just, I give the actors and actresses a great deal of credit. The show was well done. I also want to just put a plug in. In fact, if you look at the wall over here, you have a personal invite to Winter Wonderland, and that is this Thursday. This is a students conceived exhibition that focuses on literacy. And I'm being told that it is that you can travel through the hallways for a literacy and art experience like no other. It starts at 5:30, so welcome participation by the board and by community members as well. I also just wanted to thank United States Senator Maggie Hassan and New Hampshire Hunger Solutions. Senator Hassan visited the school on March 3rd. That visit was at the request of New Hampshire Hunger Solutions, and it wasn't coincidental that Hampstead was selected. New Hampshire Hunger Solutions we're a partner with that group, and the Hampstead schools are seen as a school system that is taking really deliberate steps to combat food insecurity. And I just want to say I appreciate, this happened during school breakfast week. I appreciated the senators taking time to meet with our staff, including the food service, asking really good questions. I really feel like she took interest in it. And just to be really clear, anytime one of our elected representatives wants to come and visit our school and give our students an enriching opportunity for learning, we will take you up on that offer any day of the week, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent. There is always a seat at the table. And then I'd also just like to there's a little bit of a shameless promotion here, but on Friday had the opportunity to participate at the Central School in what we call superintendent instructional rounds. It was talked about earlier. Several of my colleagues in the South Central region came, and we observed classrooms, and it was magic. We actually got to sit in on a what we call a buddy classroom visit. So it was a fourth grade classroom that buddies up for monthly classroom visits with a first grade classroom. We got to sit in on read alouds. We got to just watch the magic of our teachers. And so I appreciate, we had colleagues, superintendent colleagues from Londonderry, Hollis Brookline, Milford, and Derry. Last month we were in Londonderry. Next month we're going to go to Hollis and Brookline. This is really for us a way to just stay connected to instruction, stay connected to the classroom, and kind of calibrate across our region, like what does good instruction look like. So it's an exciting new feature of that superintendent group. That really is it for my report. I don't know if folks have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them.
I don't have anything. Okay. Other business, old business. Don't see any at this point. I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:30 p.m. All approved.